Missed the testimony. We're at another hearing, but I did have a chance to read all of your submitted testimony, and I appreciate your advocacy. I appreciate your work, and in trying to understand how we can really be making a difference with some of our schools. Mr. Mitchell, I was interested in just hearing some of the comments that you had in response to Senator Franken. We've got some very serious challenges, as you know, in the state of Alaska as we try to reach out to our students in our very, very remote and very rural communities. And I'd be curious, you kind of joked about, you know, that's why I don't want to be a principal anymore. One of the problems, one of the challenges that we face in our state is we just can't get the administrators. We're doing a little bit better with our teacher recruitment and retention, although that's a serious challenge in some areas. But if all of these turnaround models really revolve around getting a new principal, what do we do in finding these new principals, particularly if they're looking at it and saying, okay, well, I'm going to be the first one on the boat out of here. How difficult is this going to be in rural states?
Well, as you probably know, it was difficult before we started this process.
Okay, true.
And now you've got people who can certainly check report cards and see where a school is at before they'd even apply for the job. In South Dakota, we'll do a national search for a superintendency of a very large school district and maybe get 6 people that are interested in even attempting the position. So certainly you could be creating, you know, some sort of a problem area here that's just going to get worse and worse. We were talking this morning about, you know, I started as a superintendent when I was 35 years old. In South Dakota, for a period of time, the governor threw all the rules out and anybody could be a superintendent. And so that's how I got the job. I've since went on and got my full certification and degrees to back up what I felt, because I felt that was important. But the problem is trying to get the people to do that hard work and get those people to understand that even once they get those particular jobs, once they put the models in place, there's still a possibility that even though they're supporting growth, they're not going to be able to reach the bar. So they're going to force some sort of transformation, which is going to send them down the road and put a blip on their record. So the recruitment and the retaining of people right now is getting to be at a very critical age, especially as many of the administrators are aging and leaving the profession.
I appreciate that. Mr. Balfanz, you had noted in your testimony the research and being focused primarily on the middle and high school students when you're talking about those dropout indicators. But we all recognize that there are factors that come into play that certainly are contributors, whether it's poor vocabulary development or social indicators that are out there. Should we be looking earlier? And if so, how early? You know, I look at kids that get so frustrated so early on, and that level of frustration never abates. If anything, it just gets worse, and I think that then inhibits their ability. Right. Are we waiting too late on this?
I think the answer is we need to have a continuum of supports at all the key transitions. And the first key
what are the key transitions? The
first key transition is pre-K to second grade.
Yeah.
It's really that good start. That two things, you know, basically learning the basic reading skills and also math. That the math gap is the smallest in kindergarten and gets bigger over time. So staying on top of that, making sure it doesn't grow, and then also socializing kids into the joy of schooling. You need to learn early on that schooling is joyful. If you socialize it and it's a chore, there's so much tension, we all got to pass our tests, right? That builds over time. The next key transition is in the middle schools, and this is why focus any one time is not enough, because there's kids that do really well in elementary school, but in early adolescence, they're making an independent decision, is schooling for me again? And their relationship to their peers is changing, to their neighborhood is changing, to their school is changing. And you could have a great elementary experience and still get tripped up then. And then the transition into high school, same thing. There's a 25% of kids that struggle in the 9th grade did fine in 8th grade. They had good test scores, they came to school every day, they'd be on nobody's radar screen. But for them, it was that older transition. And then finally, we got to have a transition out of high school. We got to have pathways to post-secondary success, because again, what we've learned to have kids succeed in high needs places, we put tons of structures in high school, 3 levels of extra help, and that's necessary. But that doesn't leave you prepared for a community college where suddenly you've got to figure out everything yourself and there's no support. So I think it's really those 4 points we need those.
Is any one more important than the other, would you say?
I don't think so. I think that's where we get into trouble. We want to pick and choose, but we need to have, you have to make all those 4 transitions, you're good to go. You miss one of them, you're not.
I'm not sure that we're focused on the
Right.
initial one yet,
Right.
the pre-K to 2.
Right.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Bennett.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for holding this hearing, and thank you for your testimony. It's been fascinating.